is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It really helps me a lot. And don't forget to check out my website, paradoxastrology.com. I am a professional astrologer and I can help you with anything. And if you like occult videos and you want to support this channel, feel free to go to Patreon. I have exclusive videos I don't put on YouTube. So I want to talk about how Saturn is going to Shatabhisha on March 15th. And this is going to set a lot of things off. The reason why is because this nakshatra is ruled by Rahu. And Rahu is a malefic planet. And so is Saturn. Now, Saturn is already aspecting Rahu on the third aspect. So Rahu is in Ashwini. And so Saturn is going into Shatabhisha from Dhanishta. Now, when it was in Dhanishta, it had to do with a lot of war-like activities because Dhanishta is ruled by Mars. When Saturn was in Dhanishta, Dhanishta has to do with wealth. It's wealthy. We saw a lot of things slow down that have to do with wealth or the wealthiest people. We saw, I think it went in, February. So it was February 2022. Now, during that time, didn't we see FTX? We saw a lot of crypto things go under. We saw some major layoffs. We saw what is a recession, but a lot of people don't want to admit that. We saw a lot of these things happen. Now, Saturn, when it was in there, it was suppressing a lot of the wealth from the very wealthy people. The important thing about Saturn is to know that when it slows it down, it means that now it's time for a sense of responsibility. It's a time to do things slowly and surely, even though Dhanishta wants to do things fast because it's Mars. It's slowing that down. So those who had impatience and weren't ready to be responsible, who just wanted to go for it, ended up in a lot of problems if they had a weak Saturn. Like maybe they were stubborn and maybe they were tactless, destructive and worried and depressed. That could have caused that if your Saturn's not well placed. If you had it well placed, you knew that routine and you knew that the long haul things would pay off. Now, if you knew that, then Saturn helped you. If you didn't, then it destroyed everything. Now it's going to go in Shatabhisha. Shatabhisha has to do with the 100 healers and it has to do with the stars. Now we're going to go through a lot of issues that have to do with healing, and it's aspecting Rahu and Aries and Ashwini, which has to do with healing as well. So there's a lot of things that are going to come up about the medical community, new technology, new things that have to do with that. It's also represented by an empty circle as well. So a circle can be about possessing things, putting things, locking them in a container. It's also about bodies of water as well. We have Rahu in Ashwini, that's about transportation. So will we have some issues with transportation of certain things that have to do with health? Will we have some issues with the bodies of water and the cleanup that must be done? Saturn aspecting Rahu can cause chemical spills and it can cause spills of gas and petroleum. We saw the chemical spill already occurring because of the aspect, but this is going closer. This aspect will be the closest in April. So we're going towards that. Last time there was an oil spill. There was a huge one in the ocean. This has to do with ocean. So I could definitely see that happening. Rahu represents bombs. There was a bomb on a plane that went off last time they were aspecting, and Saturn being in Aquarius when in an air sign represents planes, and this represents transport. So there could be some problems with transport. This is hiding motives and things like that. So Saturn is going to reveal the karma of those who had hidden motives. This will come up for those who didn't have a good Saturn, who are trying to probably deceive and to gain money, to gain things and financial gain faster instead of having patience. So that will reveal these hidden motives of things that maybe we've been dealing with for the last 3 years. There could be some self-pity. There could be some pessimism if your Saturn isn't well placed, some laziness, addiction. This aspect created a crack epidemic in the 80s. So now with these aspecting, especially Saturn being in Aquarius and loss of humanity, there could be a lot of loss of people through addictions or through medical procedures. It's also the power of healing and heaven and earth. So there could be some alternative healing. Now people are going to alternative healing because of what they learned about the medical community. I could see that happening as well. It's also for butcher-like activities ranging from things that the medical community did that butchered people instead of healing them. That will come out. This is also electricity and technology. We could have cyber attacks. There could be new technology that comes out. This is also astrologers, space research, pilots, anything to do with the stars, aliens, Project Blue Beam, all of this, fake alien invasions, physicists in general, pharmaceutical industries, things are coming up. So those things will come out. But what we really want to be cautious of is birth rates will go down as well. Saturn is going to be going retrograde in Dhanishta on October 15th. And that's going to be retrograding until November 24th. And that is when we're going to see a lot of problems that have to do with war and then finance again. So we'll get all of these things and learning about healing, things coming out, aspecting Rahu. That's actually not good for war as well when aspecting Rahu in Aries, because Aries is war. That could be a lead up, and then once it goes retrograde back into Dhanishta, which is ruled by Mars, which is war, then we could see a lot of wealth. We could see a huge detriment in wealth and the escalation of war. I think people should be very cautious, especially when it has to do with Ukraine. Now, Ukraine, if this is the correct chart, which I got from an astrologer of 30 years, a Jyotish astrologer, Saturn is in the 10th house of Ukraine's chart. And so that's going to be aspecting Rahu in the 12th house. So the 10th house is the reputation of the country. It's the leader, it's the foreign affairs, and it's going to be aspecting Rahu. And Rahu is going to be in the 12th house of loss and hospitalizations. Also, the natal Rahu is in the 8th house. So that's going to be activating the 8th house of transformation during this time, especially around April when it goes exact. It's going to do this. So that's in Sagittarius in its 8th house. The lord of its 8th house is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in the 4th house of home. So what that all means is that this will cause losses and loss of reputation or loss of the leader that will occur in the home of the country. So it should be very cautious about that. The other thing I noticed is that its natal Saturn is in Uttara Ashada and has to do with the later victory. But it's a sun-ruled nakshatra and it has Saturn in there. So the Saturn, even though it's well placed in Capricorn, is not well placed in that nakshatra, and the sun is the leader. So just seeing that, I could be totally wrong. I'm just speculating. There could be something that happens with the leader. When we have Saturn retrograde, last time it retrograded in these exact spots, we had a lot of, especially in Aquarius, we had a change of leaders. There was a huge change of leaders, especially in Canada. It retrograded. We had a new prime minister, for the first female prime minister. And then after the retrograde, she was gone. And so there could be replacement of some kind in some different kinds of country. If it's not Ukraine, it could be in Canada. It could be several other countries. We've already been seeing that as Saturn moved into Aquarius, there was a lot of change in government officials. Also, it's Sati for Ukraine. So it's going through a lot of karmic changes right now because it's in the sign right after the one of the moon. So it just got out of the one of the moon, which usually helps it, but it's still in Sati as it's in Aquarius. So there's still a lot of karmic things that can happen. So Ukraine needs to be very cautious about these things. Now, when it retrogrades back into the 4th pada, and that's October 15th, the 4th pada of Dhanishta is a Scorpio, Navamsha. And so that could be explosive things could happen, permanent changes, military movements, clashes. October 15th will be when it retrogrades back into there. That's when you're probably going to see the most action occur. But also Saturn aspecting Rahu doesn't look that good either because we're still dealing with Mars energy. So that's also for musicians, entertainers, and military. So we have to watch out for our waters. We have to watch out for contamination, water spills, things like that. Shatabhisha is also the ultimate con artist. So the karma for the con artists that have to do with health. So Rahu is intoxicants, drugs, and anything to do with that. That's why I see that the death rate will go up. There could be an acceleration due to drugs during this period of time, or it could be because of the medical community. There could be a lot of limitation and grief that come with the population. Earthquakes, there's going to be huge earthquakes that happen. We have to be careful of oil spilling in the ocean, and also Berlin Wall came down during this time when it did aspect. So there are going to be people who will want to revolutionize the way things have always been. And so Rahu is kind of that revolutionary anarchy against Saturn the civil servant as well, or the police officers. A civil unrest definitely will be happening. So yeah, those are just things that I wanted you to kind of pay attention to as we kind of shift. This will be a very telling time. It's important. Saturn transits can really show us the most things that will happen in the world. So I don't make this video too long. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.